Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Hangout. This is the first of many Stretch Yourself series that I will be kicking off for the 2015 year. I'm so excited to be here with you all back on a live Hangout. As many of you all know who have tuned into my Hangouts before, I have been on maternity leave. I just gave birth to my first child. So I'm finally getting back in the flow of getting some work done, of course, still from home. And I'm really just trying to get back in the groove. And so I'm excited to be back out here with my fellow entrepreneurs, team members, followers, and anyone who may be new to joining my Hangouts and my series. The Stretch Yourself series and really the Young and Free was launched by me this time last year. And it was intended for the purposes of really helping to provide resources to new entrepreneurs and what the industry is more recently calling solopreneurs, right? So the people who are really just a one-man show. A lot of us who have began working on our passion projects, whether it be on the side or full-time, really are just starting off by ourselves and maybe having a business partner, maybe an assistant. But a lot of the things that we experience as entrepreneurs, whether they be successes or pitfalls, can be avoided if given proper guidance or kind of given business tips and strategies to avoid. And so one of the things that I wanted to do as an entrepreneur is to give real-time advice and success tips as I learn them, right? So a lot of times we will get tips from people who have been in the industry for 15, 20 plus years. And some of the advice can be a little over our head, or some of it is not tactical enough because successful people may not even realize what it's like to be at the bottom or to be in your lean startup phase. And so I really wanted to capture a lot of the things that I learned in the beginning of my phase as an entrepreneur and share them as I went along, instead of waiting 10 years from now to come back and say, oh yeah, when I was, in my first year of business, this is what I learned. Okay, so let's just kind of briefly talk about what we're going to discuss over the next half hour or so. So you're going to get a quick background on me. Who am I? I kind of already given you that. But of course, I know many of you all are brand new or, have been following me for a while, and you're just simply like, who is Alena? Who is Army Fatigue? Who is the Young and Free Girl? And we're going to answer those questions tonight. And then, of course, we're going to dive into tonight's topic, which is 5 resolutions every entrepreneur should check off in 2015. So a little bit about me. I'm a former Wall Street analyst, but like most people, I'm just a normal girl who was told what life was going to be like, and then it ended up being completely different. So what do I mean by that? I was told you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a great degree, you go and get your graduate degree, you land a great job, and you'll be happy. And so that's pretty much the formula that I followed. And so I had my dream career of always living in New York City, working in investment banking and the financial services industry. And after about 3 years, or maybe even 2.5 years, I really found myself staring at my Excel spreadsheet day in and day out, and really just feeling very, very unhappy. This was something that I had dreamed of for years. I had imagined myself doing for years. I had prayed for countless nights of actually staying up and, preparing for interviews, only to kind of be left feeling like this cannot be it. This cannot be where, my happy ending comes, because I'm not happy. And so, I started exploring other ways that I could really bring some type of diversity into my life in terms of what I was doing outside of work. So at the time, I was presented with the opportunity to start working with a great friend of mine on her startup company, her cosmetic line. She wanted me to come in and really help her launch her business in major cities, and also to run be the head of her sales department. And so I came in, and what that opportunity did for me is it really lit a fire in me. I was able to see something that started as just a concept on a notepad, started as just what ifs in conversations over wine in our living room, to actually a full-fledged brand, you know, that's being sold globally, that's being sold in major retailers. And I knew that at that point, I wanted to experience that every day. I wanted to know what it was like to want to stay up to 3 and 6 in the morning every single day for months at a time just to see a vision come to fruition. And so at that point, I pretty much decided that I was going to quit my job as a Wall Street analyst and really take all of those projects that, you know, had popped up in my head for years, and all of those things that I wanted to do, you know, just as business opportunities, and really start going for them. And so needless to say, I left my full-time job back in 2013, and I went to pursue the cosmetic company full-time, as well as I went on to launch my own iPhone application with a business partner of mine. Since then, I have ventured into the area of network marketing with a very popular health and wellness company, which has just been a true blessing for me and really has taught me some valuable entrepreneurial lessons. But like most of you, I'm just getting started, right? I have tons of new projects that I'll be launching this year. And of course, my greatest job of all, being a mother, has really inspired me to come up with tons of products and services that I can't wait to bring to the market. So enough about me. You know, let's just kind of dive into this event tonight, this hangout. And so I created this presentation because I really truly believe that success leaves clues. And I got that from Brian Tracy. I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with him, but he has a great book as well as a YouTube video that talks about how if you want to be successful, you should find someone who's already done what you're doing or you're trying to do and simply mimic what they've done, right? So with the idea that you can go and see and watch the habits of successful people and merely replicate that in your business, and you will inevitably be successful. And so with that being said, you know, I wanted to take the opportunity to share with you all 5 of many things that I experienced last year in 2014, my second year as an entrepreneur, and really give that wisdom and that experience to you all so that you can apply it. Right? So whether it's things that I learned from mistakes or things that I got right that I want and encourage you to replicate this year in your business, I'm going to really just highlight those things. And most of you all, as I go through this, will think, okay, duh, you know, these are just basic tips. But I really want you to take the time to internalize what these things mean and how really shifting them or really implementing them can genuinely take your business to the next level. Most of these resolutions are personal resolutions, right? So we talked about how many of you all who are on this hangout tonight are the rising solopreneurs, right? So the people that are just out there grinding at night by themselves. And so when you're working by yourself, as many of us do in the beginning, many of these changes in your business start with you as a person. They start with your daily habits. They start with your consistency and really just, you know, the overall dignity that you put into your business and pride that you put into your business with a few simple changes to your daily life. Okay, so let's just dig into this. All right, so what's going to be our first resolution in 2015? All right, I want you to go ahead and forget everything you know about multitasking. What do I mean by that? Okay, so some point along the way, someone told us that the more you have going on, the better. I am completely guilty of that. Like I said, when I first quit my job, I was doing the cosmetic company full time. I was doing my app. I was still really working a full-time job. On top of that, I was head of fundraising for my sorority, and then all of these other things like my social life. I was just the queen of multitasking, right? A lot of us like to even use this term, serial entrepreneur. And I really was one of those people that, I didn't want to choose a project. I remember my friend sending me a video from Tyler Perry where he drilled this whole concept of choose one thing to do and focus on that. And I was just like, that's total, crap. I can do whatever I want to do. But what I have learned and what I learned over the last 2 years after trying to take on, 3 and 4 businesses, 3 and 4 projects at a time, is that you simply only hurt yourself. Right. So I had a conversation with one of my mentees the other day, and she was listing off all of these things that she wanted to do in 2015. I'm going to be working on this app. I'm going to be working on this business. Oh, and by the way, I'm starting this blog. And I wanted to tell her, you are going to epically fail. Right. And that's harsh because I was one of those people that totally didn't believe that you have to choose one thing to work on. But this is why. Let's think about this. Let's kind of really dig into why multitasking as a solopreneur can be an epic fail for your business. Okay. So when you're working on different projects, right? So I'm just going to give specific examples with me, right? So I'm a distributor for It Works Global, which is a health and wellness company, which really has to do with going out and getting sales and also helping other people to do the same, right? I'm a co-founder of Girl Talk, which is an iPhone app, which is a completely different industry. It's the technology industry. It's all about understanding servers and data and, widgets and HTML and all of this different code. And then there was the lip bar. It was all about understanding sales, but also understanding marketing, understanding the cosmetic industry. And so with that, I'm dealing with 3 different industries. So what does that mean? I really am using 3 different areas of my brain, right? And so that means that in a day's time, I write down my to-do list and I have at the top, okay, for 2 hours, I'm going to work on Girl Talk. For 2 hours, I'm going to work on It Works. For 2 hours, I'm going to work on the lip bar. Right? What happens is that really we are not accounting for the amount of time that it takes for us to, number one, get situated in what we're working on, right? So how long does it typically take for you to get the groove in a project, right? So if you happen to, okay, I'm going to start a new blog post today for my company, right? It takes you a good hour or 2 to really get your groove. And by the time your 2 hours is up, you're just now starting to really conceptualize what you want to write. But oh, by the way, you allocated time to now switch over to start doing lip bar stuff, right? So what happens is that we not only don't account for the time that it takes for us to get our groove going, we don't account for the time that it takes to shift. Right? So how many times have you been working on one project and it's used the left side of your brain, and now it's time to start using the right side of your brain on another project, right? That shift on average takes anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. So between every single project, we're losing hours. We're becoming unproductive, right? And what happens is every single day, we find ourselves not accounting for this missing time that it takes for our brain to really shift from one project to the next and one industry to the next and really get our groove going from one thing to the next, that every single day we've accomplished nothing. And what that ends up doing for our psyche is that it actually leaves us feeling very stressed out, very burnt out, and very just unproductive, right? How many of us go back to our to-do list and we've literally checked off nothing. Nothing was completed, and we feel very upset about that. If you continue to not be able to check off your to-do list, never have a finished project, right, every single day, 5 to 7 days in a row, what ends up happening is that you experience overwhelm. Then you end up becoming paralyzed by your overwhelm, and you consider yourself stuck. I did a blog post this time last year about being stuck and how, literally you can be overwhelmed with so many things that you didn't do that you never become productive. Right? You can go 3 and 4 months of just being in a stuck phase. And that stuck phase was a root problem of us just doing too much, us trying to multitask, us trying to be serial entrepreneurs. And so the resolution that we're going to make in 2015 is that we're really going to start thinking about one project at a time. Now, does this mean that you have to stop everything and, if there's one company that you're involved in, you have to quit that? No, absolutely not. But what you have to, number one, start doing is say, I don't have capacity for this right now. And you have to deem which project is priority for you, right? So you can determine, what amount of time you want to take on a certain project. So I recommend doing certain projects or working on certain companies in week increments, right? So if I say in 1 week's time, my biggest priority is to recruit 10 people into my business, right? And so I'm going to give myself 5 days to do that. So that means that starting Sunday, I'm hitting the ground running, trying to complete all of the things that I know are going to help me recruit people in my business, go out to meetings, do different campaigns, do phone calls. 5 days straight. Number one, I have my flow going on that particular company. The energy is there, the momentum is there, and I am actually seeing it through. So by the end of the week, come Saturday, I've hit my goal, I can check it out, and I feel refreshed, and I truly feel like I can move on, right? I didn't lose a lot of unnecessary hours switching between projects. I kept my theme, or my content all in one space, and my head wasn't all over the place. I didn't feel distracted or tight, and I got things done. And then the second week, I can come in and say, okay, this week I'm going to dedicate all my meetings to Girl Talk. I'm going to work on this. And what that does is that really just puts our calendar and our mind in a position where we can just be more productive. That's really what we want, is we want to increase our productivity levels in 2015. Because a lot of us were doing a whole bunch of stuff in 2014, but we still have so many things that were left undone. I just went through my old journal from last year, and I was doing so much stuff. It was overwhelming. I was doing so much stuff, and a lot of it didn't get done. A lot of it was left open, and it was because it was just too much, okay? So we want to forget what we know about multitasking, and we really want to take the time to start thinking about how we can focus on one project at a time. I also recommend doing things in quarters, right? So I know that for me, I have a huge project that I want to launch at least by the summertime, but I also know that I need startup capital for that project, right? And so a lot of the things that I'm working on in first quarter that's going to affect my third quarter project is, going to be really focusing on my revenue generating companies so that I can then move on to something else, right? So you may have certain goals that you set, and you say, look, I'm not going to move on to this project until I've hit this threshold. Until I've made $20,000 in this venture, I'm not going to even start working on this. Because if I start working on this, I'm never going to hit my $20,000 threshold because my priorities are too scattered, okay? So, doing things in quarters or setting certain thresholds and goals to meet before you move on to something else, regardless of how long it takes, is also a great resolution for making sure that we're really getting the best of what we want to accomplish in 2015. Okay, so I hope that that's a helpful resolution for you all. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Number 2, I will treat momentum like gold. And so momentum is one of those things that, it's something that I have personally experienced, but it's one of those things that some people don't really fully appreciate how much it can change their business. Okay, so the most the most power is used, or the most power to take a plane off the ground is used in the beginning, right? And then it just kind of switches to autopilot. And so what we have to think about is when we're starting new projects or we're doing things, we have to focus a lot of energy in the beginning to get the thing off of the ground, right? And so what happens, is that we want to focus on not stopping the consistency, because if the consistency stops, then the momentum truly never happens, right? So that means that, say you start working on something, you're just getting your groove, and then you get distracted. Then you have to completely start over. It's no picking up off where you left. And so when I say I will treat momentum like gold, this is something that I got right in 2014, but it's also something that I got wrong, right? And the reason why I put that like gold on the end is that I saw the value of momentum in my various businesses, but I didn't truly appreciate it and see all of the things that can come from sticking with something that has momentum. Because when I got it, right, I stopped, and the lack of consistency and having to start over several times allowed me to never get my momentum back, and revenue suffered, etc. So when you get your flow, you got to hold on to it, right? One of the examples that I love is, people talk about all the time how they feel like the actor Kevin Hart or comedian Kevin Hart is doing way too much stuff, right? And I remember having a conversation with Kevin, and even he's talked about this in interviews. It's like, when you're on, right? So that means if you have a business opportunity and people are, your clients are coming in like crazy, or if you're in some type of network marketing business like me and your recruits are coming in like crazy, you got to take that thing to the next level while you got it, right? You can't take a week off. You can't switch to another project and start working on other things. You got to grab that thing as if it's never coming back. Like, because a lot of times timing is everything, right? So if you have your flow, don't take it for granted. Don't get distracted. Don't lose steam. Don't let outside forces distract you, because trust me, when it's gone, and it may not come back ever. That's number one. You may not get a chance to be a comedic rock star again. You may not get a chance to surge to the top of your company, and get, an allotted bonus for a certain amount of time. You might not get that momentum back, right? So when you start off, the main thing is to recognize that it's going to take a lot. Okay, it's going to take a lot of energy before you can really start chilling, right? But when you know that in certain businesses, or really in every industry, it's kind of like this. You work in surges, right? You work really hard to get something off the ground so that, at some point you could take 2 and 3 months of running your business on autopilot, right? But when you have that surge and you have that momentum, if you let it go and you lose focus during that peak hour, you're gonna hit rock bottom again. You got to keep it going until you've trained your business to run like a well-oiled machine. Okay, so in 2015, I want you to recognize what it's going to take to get your momentum, which is a whole bunch of work, and realizing that a lot of times in companies you spend a lot of time for a little bit of money, right? Just so that you can start making a lot of money for a little bit of work in the end, right? So recognizing that, number one, but then taking advantage of that momentum, right? And not taking it for granted, not saying, oh, well, I can pick this same thing back up 2 months from now. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And so that's one of the things, like I said, that I got right and I got wrong in 2015. And I encourage you not to make the same mistake. When you got it and you got the juice, hold on to your juice, okay? Let's move on to the next one. Number 3, I'll ask myself, is this making me money? And so this really goes into the whole concept of being busy versus revenue generating activities, okay? So what are some things that us solopreneurs or us entrepreneurs get caught up in, really feeling like we're doing things that are helping our business, or we're busy, right? But really it's just being busy. So things like surfing the web. How many of us, start on one blog about, personal development, or one blog about our industry and certain sales tactics that are going to make us millions. And then that blog post references something else, and you end up clicking on that, and you end up clicking on 5 more links. The next thing you know, you look up 4 hours later and you haven't done anything that was on your to-do list. And then you just kind of chalk it up and say, oh, well, it was for the betterment of the business. And, I pretty much got all this personal development. And really, that was just being busy. That didn't make you any money, especially if you have a habit of doing that every single day, right? Surfing social media. This is probably the biggest thing that we get caught up in. I know so many of us use social media as a platform for marketing our business. And so what happens is we go and we post something and we see something interesting in our feed come up. And next thing we know, we're 20 pages down the line. We don't even know how we got there, right? So that's how, we started out being busy posting stuff, and then it just completely became a waste of time, right? Or we start creating this whole concept of extra bells and whistles, right? So this is something that I know specifically in my business. We have a core of things that we do in my business. And as an example, right, we get people who want to sell the product, and we get customers. Those are the 2 main things in our business, right? And what I've seen is that a lot of people will come into my business and they get themselves being busy with things that don't make them money, like putting together unnecessary websites when the company, gives you a website. They go out and they're making t-shirts, or they're making flyers, or they're just doing all of these things that are great, but they're really considered bells and whistles, and in the beginning should not be a primary focus if you're not making money, right? I myself am completely guilty of this. An example of it is last year around this time, I was so caught up on just trying to, make everything so perfect, right? So from, the wording to the branding to the colors to the taglines, I just wanted to do everything big. I wanted my websites to be grand. I wanted just all of this extra stuff for my business. And I ended up taking 2 months being busy on all of this stuff. And I looked up and my check was suffering, right? My check was suffering because I was busy doing non-revenue generating activities. So one of the things that I want to be clear on is that all of those things, right? Reading blogs, personal development, putting together extra things that are going to make you distinct, like a blog or a flyer, those things are great. I'm not saying not to do them, but I want you to really make a resolution in 2015 to ask yourself, is this making me money? And if it's not making you money, if it's not a revenue generating activity, it should not be more than 20% of your time, if that, okay? So this resolution is simply for you to sit back and really analyze what kind of time you're putting into things that are generating revenue for your business. And, deciding how much time you need to cut back on the things that are not paying out, right? Because when we're trying to launch a business, it's very important that we get out there and we start doing the things that are going to help to build our bottom line so that we can then invest in those other things, right? So, it's fine to do them. I'm not saying to not make your business unique and not keep the things fresh, but I'm saying that you want to find out what's the core of your business, right? So that means that if you are a life coach, or if you, sell hair or whatever the case is, you want to make sure that you are doing activities like meeting with salon owners, meeting with potential ambassadors, meeting with clients, doing promotional sales, things that are going to generate revenue for your business and your product before you spend time, actually, going and creating like a huge blog that's going to take up five months for you to do personally, right? If that makes sense. So that is the third resolution, is that I want you to focus on revenue generating activities. That is something that I got wrong in 2014, and my check suffered. And then I learned really quickly, right? Because it doesn't take anything but, a zero changing in your check or your bottom line for you to figure out, oh, this is not making me money, right? I can still do this, but it's not going to be a priority, as much as, this activity is. So by the end of 2014, I had cleaned that up and really got down to the nuts and bolts of my business and figured out what is making me money and focused on that, right? Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, I will reach decisions promptly and change them slowly. This is going to be a great resolution for most of you all on this phone. This is something that I have gotten right for a very long time. Even before I hopped into entrepreneurship, but even more so since I have, this is something that I've always had a habit of doing, which is reaching decisions swiftly, right? This is something that is probably the biggest thing that I've seen new entrepreneurs, new team members getting wrong. And it's them, I got to think about it, or really taking months and months and months to decide what they want to do with their life, right? I'm just going to read you something that many of you all that have been following me know that I love Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And this is directly from the book. Accurate analysis of over 25,000 men and women who had experienced failure disclosed the fact that lack of decision was near the head of the list of 30 major causes of failure. Procrastination is the opposite of decision. All right. Most of the time when people are not making decisions swiftly, right, they are generally being influenced by the opinions or the decisions of others. And typically opinions are just simply going to handicap you, whether it's a relative or a friend that you may think has your best interest at hand. Sometimes those opinions really make you start doubting yourself, right? I know, for example, after I had made the decision to leave my corporate job, I was so excited and I was telling all of these people and they were looking at me like I had 3 eyes. Like, what in the world are you doing? Why would you do that? Why would you leave your job to go and pursue something that is making you no money and that you don't know will be successful? And, had I not already made my decision, put in my resignation, figured out what I wanted to do with my life in a quick manner, I would have started tithering away from what I really wanted to do because I was so caught up on what everyone else's opinion was, right? Everyone else thinks they know what's best for you, but you are the person that needs to decide what's going to be best for your life. If you have a gut feeling that you want to go for something, just make the decision, right? What's the worst that can happen? I always tell people, you want to try my business out, try it. You want to try my product out, what's the worst that can happen? You try it. You take the risk. There is no one, absolutely no one that has been successful that has not, taken quick decisions, risk that are going to forever change their lives. And I implore you all to really, really think about, have you been reaching decisions promptly? There are so many of you all that are probably on this hangout today who, have something that they've been having pending for months. Do you want to join this gym? Do you want to take this trip? Do you want to invest in this opportunity? And the decision needs to be on a drop of a dime. I think that that's just been a God-given gift that I've gotten, because every single thing that has been my greatest accomplishment to this day has been a very quick decision. When I was asked to do the lip bar, boom, yes, absolutely. When I decided what I wanted to do, yeah, boom, it's just like on the spot, because I just got a feeling about it. I align it with my goals, how it can help me, and I just move swiftly. And, there are always going to be opportunities that come that you move swiftly on that may not turn out the way that you want to, but I guarantee that those opportunities will teach you something. Right? They will teach you something. You will learn something that will help you in the next opportunity. Okay. So I want you all to start reaching decisions promptly. All right, and changing them slowly. And then if you do feel like you don't really know exactly what you want to do, you're confused, you should be very, very selective about the type of people that you allow to give you advice. Right? So I love that comment or that saying, don't ask someone who's never done it for advice, right? That's the stupidest thing That is the dumbest thing to ever do, is to go and ask someone who's never been an entrepreneur, who's never made a million, who's never did whatever you're trying to do, and get all of this advice from them. That just doesn't make sense. But that's what most of us are doing. Most of us are relying on our friends and family to give us the okay, and our friends and family are just simply not qualified to do that. So that's another step of this resolution, is you have to go out and find what, successful people would call a mastermind group, where you find people who have done what you're trying to do, or find people that are like-minded that you can trust in terms of how they think, what decisions they're making in their life, and ask them what they think, right? And ultimately, it's going to be on you. Okay, so I want you to think about that. How will I continue to grow myself as a person, even outside of business, right? Whatever it may be, spirituality, spouse, this and that. Make the decision properly and change them slowly. That's going to be our fourth resolution for 2015 as entrepreneurs. All right, and then our fifth resolution: I accept discipline is not sexy, but essential. I love this. I think I got this actual quote from a training that I did last year. And, discipline is really one of those things that will make or break a new entrepreneur. This is where the fun and games subside, and you really have to roll up your sleeves. Discipline is like sacrificial, right? It's one of those things where I have a lot of people who have great ideas, and really want to make that leap of faith, but I truly know that the one thing that they're missing is that discipline, right? They're not going to give up their Saturdays, of brunching with their friends. They're not going to give up their sleep, right? Because sleep is so precious to them. They're not going to give up, the ego, right? That's the biggest thing. Like, they don't want to give up being in a sexy role. That was one of the things that was a big thing for me, was coming from an industry that was like, oh, you do this, people would kind of get excited. And then when you tell them this is what you're doing now, they kind of look at you like, oh, okay. And so it's kind of like the sacrifice and the discipline that it takes to kind of come into an entrepreneurial role is something that most people don't have. Let's just be honest. And there's a lot of people that have kind of taken that leap, and they've gone out there and you have failed, or you continue to not generate revenue or not make any traction because you have failed to buckle down and get disciplined, right? So let's kind of talk about what discipline is and why it's essential, right? So it means doing what's boring, right? What are some things that can be boring? So an example of this would be, all right, social media can be tedious, okay? So that means that if you're primarily marketing your business on social media, we have so many platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, any kind of platform that you're using, Google Hangouts, Google Plus. Like, social media can be very tedious, and in establishing your brand and getting your followers up, that's something that can take hours and hours out of the day. But once you start getting your following, and you're really trying to generate great content that's going to make people want to come back and really follow you and tune into what you have to say, doing that real time every day is probably one of the most time consuming things, right? So that means if you know that you want to post on average 2 to 5 times throughout the day, content that's going to drive people to either your website or to your sales page or whatever, not having that stuff prepared in advance can really be the most unproductive thing in your business, okay? So discipline is someone who actually will take the time to create an editorial calendar in advance, right? They'll dedicate a day out of the week where they actually look at that calendar and they sit down and they create the social media assets needed for the upcoming week. So they think about and they go ahead and write 5 blog posts in advance, right? And think about how much time that saves and how much money they can be making not doing those real-time posts every single day. But the catch is most people will never do that because they're not disciplined enough to take every Saturday to make it social media Saturday where they just sit down and hash it out, right? Most people are not disciplined enough to do the boring stuff like do very manual email responses or write handwritten notes to new clients, or, you know, go and find a new autoresponder to your emails that's gonna, you know, make responding times faster and make your customer service more valuable. Like, those are the things that are absolutely essential to make you stand out, to make your business run very swiftly. But, you know, most people won't do it because they have no discipline. All right. So one of the things that is probably going to be the most important this year as an entrepreneur is for us to really buckle down and get disciplined. If you're like me, you may be, you know, and this has been in the past, and this is what I've seen a lot of people doing. You will get disciplined, or you'll start becoming very consistent in your business or your habits or your thinking or whatever it is, but you're very prone to going back to old ways, right? One bad week kind of sets you back, or you start losing focus, even though you know how much better life is when you're on track and when you're disciplined and when you do your daily habits, when you work out every day. You know how much easier it is to stay on track versus stopping and having to get back in shape, right? We know how much better it is, but we get off track. One of the things that I read in 2014, or kind of, I think it was like an anecdote that I heard that has forever stuck in my mind, is a story that someone was telling about the movie Man on Fire, right? So many of us have seen the movie Man on Fire with Denzel. And so in this movie, he begins vesting time in Peter, the girl who he's actually the bodyguard for down in Mexico, right? And one of the things that the young girl wants to do is she wants to actually, you know, make the swim team. She loves it over her piano lesson. She wants to be great. And so, you know, against his own will, he finally decides he's going to help this girl train to be great. A great swimmer and to make the team. And so every single day, you know, she's trying to get her speed up, her agility up, and he shouts this question to her every single day: are you trained or are you untrained, right? And she responds, trained, right? And so many of you all have seen this, and you see how epic it is for her to just constantly scream trained, right? And the question is that I'm going to pose to you is, you know, are you going to be trained to be disciplined or untrained? And I hope that the answer is trained, right? Every single time I find myself becoming undisciplined in what I'm doing, whether it's focusing, you know, on daily things that I need to be doing in my business, or, you know, I know in my business we have what we call follow-up Fridays, where we have to be disciplined every Friday to go down a list of maybe 200 prospects and see, you know, if they're interested in, you know, in becoming part of our business or trying new products. You know, are you going to be trained enough to be disciplined to do that? You know, are you going to be trained enough to get up and know that you got to go and talk to certain people to put your product out there? Are you going to be trained enough to send so many emails per day so that you can get on whoever's calendar so they can be the next connection that you need to get, you know, in a certain magazine, right? Are you going to be trained? Okay, in 2015, are you going to be trained or untrained? I want you to really put that in your mind, because this is the thing that's going to break you. It will break you, regardless of every single book you read, every tip that you get. If you are not disciplined enough in anything that you do, or you're not training yourself to be trained, you will not be successful. So our fifth resolution for the year is I accept discipline. It's not sexy. This is not the sexy part of entrepreneurship. This is not, you know, the reward that we get, you know, for being top 30 under 30. This is not a sexy part of it. This is the essential part. This is the part that gets us the awards. This is the part that gets us on the panels. This is the part that, you know, makes us the money. You're going to have to accept that discipline is not sexy, but essential. And of course, we're going to have a sixth and bonus resolution for 2015, because I'm always about giving extra to anyone that comes and takes the time to hang out with me. In 2015, we're going to make the resolution to make books our drug. And I put vitamin in parentheses because I don't want to offend people by using drugs, but books, I mean, drugs are so much stronger. That's how essential books should be in your life. In 2014, I listened to a webinar from Les Brown, who is a motivational speaker that I absolutely adore. And he talked about how when he was coming up, he challenged himself to read as much as possible. He read 2 books per week. Okay, this is one of the things that I began challenging myself to do. And reading books, guys, is something that's going to continue to expand your mind just constantly. There's so many people that, you know, come to me for book recommendations. And the reason why I make books my drug or my vitamin is because it keeps me fresh, right? It keeps me having different perspectives. It keeps me on top of what's going on in certain industries. It helps me to remain trained in periods where I find myself not, say if I go a month with, I remember I went a month without reading a book. I was just feeling so unarmed. I felt like I didn't have the wisdom that I needed to go out and be great. You know, one of the most powerful things that you can read, obviously, is the Bible. But, you know, in Proverbs, it's written by King Solomon, who was said to be one of the wisest men to ever live, right? And in Proverbs, King Solomon talks about how if you should sell everything and buy wisdom, right? If you had to get rid of all of your money, if you had to make one resolution for 2015, you got to go out there and seek wisdom. You got to sell everything you have just so you can learn wisdom. Okay, so I think that in 2015, all of the things that we've gone through, the 5 resolutions that are going to absolutely help take your business, and the things that you absolutely need to check off in 2015 are going to be so valuable. But the most important is that you make sure that you go out and you seek this information, right? Don't wait for it to come to you. The smart entrepreneur will go out and find what they need to be successful. They'll look for those clues. They don't wait for them to fall out of the sky. And all of that stuff is going to be in books, guys. So make books your drugs in 2015. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining the first of several of our Stretch Yourself series. This replay will be available for the next week. So if you felt like you got some helpful tips today, and you know that there are some aspiring entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs out there that this information could be helpful to, please share it with them. I also love feedback. So if you thought like it was, you know, a little waste of time, definitely drop me a line below and fill out the comment section and let me know you were here tonight, who was in the building, and simply let me know what you thought and if you're going to be implementing these 5 resolutions in 2015. Thank you for joining, and I will see you all on the other side. Bye-bye.